What really is nonviolent, civilian-based national defense? How do we define it, and why does it work? Nonviolent national defense is 1. Total, 2. Collective, and 3. Nonviolent resistance, or non-cooperation with the invading army, occupying force, or oppressor. As Gene Sharp, the foremost authority in the field, points out, oppression can only exist with the consent of the oppressed. Remove that consent, and the oppressor is helpless. What the oppressor or invading army relies upon is the fear of the citizens to provide the needed consent. While the resistance of one person can educate or inspire others, it really cannot be enough to disarm the opponent. That is why it has to be total and collective to be effective. Every citizen from all walks of life must come together and act in concert. An interesting exercise is to envision an invading or oppressive army marching toward your community. What could you and the body of citizens do to defend yourselves, to render the occupying forces ineffective? First, you would need uninterrupted, reliable, and secretive means of communication to organize efforts. In Iran, when the Shah was overthrown, audio cassettes were produced, widely distributed, and elsewhere, clandestine radio stations were established. Think of other things you would need. Next, what would the invader require? Directions, reliable street signs, fuel, food, water, etc. What could you do to deny them to the invader? The cases included with this workbook will give you many ideas, some very unique and surprising. Why does civilian-based national defense work? Ronald Sider and Richard Taylor, in their book Nuclear Holocaust and Christian Hope, attribute it to 4 things. 1. The power of mass involvement. In ordinary warfare, the actual fighting or resistance is done by a small percentage of the total population. When one side is defeated, the war ends. The enemy can march in and take over a demoralized nation. In CBD, civilian-based national defense, the enemy occupation is considered the beginning, not the end of the battle. The whole population resists, young and old, men and women, educated and uneducated, city dweller and rural people. 2. The power of resistance and non-cooperation. An occupying army's power is in the fear and obedience of the people because of the enemy's weapons. The people refuse to give in to that fear, realizing that their consent is required in order for them to be ruled. They determine not to obey. Through thousands of acts, they defy the enemy and dramatize public disapproval of the occupation and maintain allegiance to their own way of life. 3. The power of nonviolence. Not encountering threat or fear, the occupying soldiers are thrown morally off balance. The preservation of any society requires at least a minimum respect for human life. No society can function if citizens are free to kill for whim or personal advantage. The kill or be killed atmosphere of war provides the stimulus to overcome this inhibition. The soldiers will find their sense of justification for killing these people undermined. They will begin to doubt the propaganda about the conquered people and may even develop sympathy or respect for them. And 4. The power of goodwill. In ordinary warfare, contempt and hatred of the enemy are the fuel that drives the machine. The enemy must be depersonalized. In the practice of CBD, resistors show concern for the enemy as persons. They seek to speak to their antagonists, to forgive those who inflict evil upon them, and even to be ready to heal the enemy's wounds. Christians believe that the power, suffering, Agape love is ultimately the most powerful force in the universe. Is this all impractical, far-fetched? Few know that even the Pentagon has provided grant money to Gene Sharp to study ways our government might use these methods. Do our present military policies provide real security? What is national security? Does it not include political, social, economic health? Do you really feel secure? Everyone agrees that our country is experiencing serious economic problems. Unemployment, homelessness, poverty all have been growing. Communities are finding it harder and harder to fund such basic needs as good education and health care. It is said we do not have enough money for these things. Is there any logical source for such funding? Our enemy, the Soviet Union, has disintegrated. Yet, relying solely on arms for national security, the military budget has remained essentially the same. To justify high arms spending, we are told other enemies threaten: Iraq, Iran, China, North Korea, Cuba. Are we really in danger? Or somehow are our hard-earned military tax dollars being wasted? Could they safely be diverted to other needs? Do we really need $479 billion to offset a mere $36.6 billion? Is our military program really practical? Because military spending per dollar creates fewer jobs than most other spending, could we not create more jobs rather than lose? What are we advocating? Not having an army? All we are advocating, as does this entire course, is that we need to look at all alternatives. If we have all the facts, if we know all the options, maybe we could find a better, more practical way of going.